The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. I'm just going to give a couple seconds for everyone to trickle in, but can you just post in the chat all the questions that you can hear me so I can get started? It is looking like everyone can hear me, which is good. So I will get started and let people come in at their own pace. So, hi, everyone. My name's Honor, and I'm a member of the Convertri team. If you want to put a face to my name, this is me here. So I'm a customer support at Convertri. If you guys are part of our Convertri Clubhouse Facebook group, you'll be able to find me in there. You'll also be able to find me on the support desk. So if you ever emailed us a query, one of our team will have replied, and that might have been me. So I'll be presenting our Getting Started webinar today. This is going to consist of building a lead funnel. So 2 pages that means that you can use Convertri to start building leads. We're going to go through some edited tips and tricks to really make the most of Convertri, save you some time, and get your pages looking really perfect. Then I'm going to talk to you guys about some of our feature updates quickly. So every single week we add new features. Which to improve the webinar, to improve the program, sorry. And we like to just walk you through them so you can see the kind of things that we get started with, we get building with, etc. So I can just see a couple more people trickling in. Hi guys, welcome to the webinar. So before I get started, can I just gauge how everyone is feeling today? On a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel with Convertri? You can post it privately to me or in the chat. Kind of from the scale of on a 1 to 10, 1 being I've never even opened Convertri, and 10 being I'm really, really good at Convertri. I should be holding this webinar. Okay, we've got a couple of these coming in. We've got some 4s, some 3s, some 5s. It's a pretty good spread. You guys know what you're doing, but you just need to get that extra boost. That is perfect and pretty expected for this webinar as well. Like, that's a really good place to be at. Yeah, we've got a couple more 5s rolling in now. Cool, thanks guys. So hopefully after this you will be feeling a lot more confident, and that will turn some of those. I can see I've got a couple more unbeginnery ones rolling in here, ones and getting very started. Whatever level, this should walk all of you guys through it. And hopefully we can change some of those 5s to 7s maybe, and maybe if you're a 1, hopefully by the end you'd be something like a 5. So we've got someone who just joined Convertri today. Welcome. So yeah, this is going to be, we'll start from the ground up. So if this is new to you, don't worry. And if you're a bit more advanced, I'm sure there'll be some tips and tricks along the way you'll learn, because the first time I attended one of these after using Convertri for about 5 months, I actually learned a lot. So there's a lot of good stuff buried in here. Right, I'm going to kick off and I'm going to start building my lead funnel. So I'm in a funnel now, and I need to put some pages in. So I went to the campaigns dashboard and I created a blank funnel for this. And now I need a page, so I'm going to click on the new page button. So up will pop all of our templates. In Convertri, we have lots of those, that they're ready-made designs for you guys. They are a super, super useful tool. But for the process of today, we are going to create a page from scratch. So if you are creating a page from scratch, this means that you have no elements on the page. And I think if you guys can master this and do it, then these templates are going to be easy breezy for you. So we're going to select create a page from scratch and give it a name. Aha, right, so it's creating my page. Sorry guys, let's get moving, shall we? So I'm now going to go into this page and click edit page. And I'm going to first add the biggest element, which is that image I showed you from this lead page here. So that is, it's the back element, so it'd be easiest to add this first and build everything else on top. So to do this, I'm going to add an image to the page on the left-hand menu using the element toolbar. So this is where you can find all of the elements to add within Convertri. So go here and you'll see the word image. So up will pop all the images in your account. So you can see I've already got some images downloaded. So this is account wide. So I've added these to other pages in my account, but they've come up here, which means that, if you added a logo once to your page, it will come up again and again. So this is a pretty good tool. You'll also notice that we'll have this search Pixabay option in here. So I'm going to select this, and this is our Pixabay integration. So we have a direct link with Pixabay, which means that we can use their images. So Pixabay images are royalty free. You don't have to pay for these. You can pop them straight on your page with no concerns there. So we can search through and find anything we want to add to our page. So does someone want to give me something that I could search in, an example of an image they might want to see today? Cool. I've got a good one from Tony, actually. I've got dance. I like that, Tony. Shall we? Never put that one in before. Cool. So up comes up, some different interpretations of dance, and you will be able to kind of find, there's ballet, and by the looks of it, so lots of other different types of dance. So you should be able to find what you're looking for in here pretty easily. But we're actually not going to use Tony's lovely dance pictures today, and I'm going to show you why. So if you select one of our Pixabay images here, you will see it's got a certain resolution size here. This doesn't need to mean anything to you guys. Do not worry about it. But actually, what it means in a technical sense is that this is how many pixels the image is. So if you made it really, really large, it might not be high quality. Normally adding these to the pages, you wouldn't even notice that. But the Pixabay images are capped at 1920 by 1280. So this one's just a bit under that. So again, like I said, a really good resolution, but Convertri can actually handle a much higher resolution, like our fast load pages. Fast page load really isn't affected by like massive images. So I'd just like to give an example of that to you guys today to show how good our page load is. So I'm going to go back to my home folder and select an image that I have already downloaded. You can see here that that pixel number is much, much higher. So this is going to be a much higher quality image. So from here, I'm going to click select, and this image will be popped on my page like so. So I'm going to, stretch this, make it the whole background, right? That's the effect I'm trying to achieve. But there's a much quicker way of doing this than just, pulling these drag handles and hoping that they fit. And that's using the first of our quick actions that we're going to use today. So up here, you have our quick actions toolbar. This is, if you master this, much like some of the stuff here I talk about later with panels, really utilizing these and getting into a rhythm with them means you'll be building pages so fast. So I'm going to go to this quick actions toolbar, and I am going to click full width. And now my image is full width, and I didn't have to make sure, and I didn't have to hope that there would be any white space either side. So now I'm going to make this cover my whole screen by holding it and shifting it upwards, and then I'm just going to drag it down a bit. So this is pretty much covering my whole background now. I'm pretty happy with this. It's full width, and I know it's got it covered. And the page will end where the last element on this page ends. So this white space is here now, but you wouldn't see that on your live page. That's just for editing purposes. So the next thing I want to add to make sure this looks like my demo page is to make sure that we are adding a panel in. So panels are essentially just a square that you add to your page, but they can be manipulated to do a number of things. So I'm going to drag a panel from my elements just like I dragged an image. So I'm going to go to the left-hand toolbar, select panel, and drag it onto my page. So I've got my panel, and I'm ready to turn this into my header. So I want my header, which will go at the top, and then I'll have a footer at the bottom with my privacy policy in it. I'm going to make this full width, just like my image, so it sits on top. And then I hold this down and pull it up. It's currently a bit too big to be a header for me, so I'm just going to pull this up using the drag handles here. So I'm pretty happy with that as a header size. You guys don't have to include a header and footer. I just like to because I think it looks quite professional, and it just holds my page together. So I'm happy with this header, but it's not the color I'm going for. The one on my demo page was a bit more of a sandier color, and I think that's a lot more complementary than, you know, the one that I have now, which is gray. So I'm going to change the background color of this panel. And to do that, I'm going to go to Element Properties. I'm going to go to Background. And when I'm here, I'm going to select this little grey cube here, which is our color picker. If you hover your mouse over it, you'll see Open Color Picker, so you know you're in the right spot. And that will pop a kind of classic color picker, so you can have a look around and select anywhere you want. And this reacts live as well. So as I'm moving it, the box itself is changing. This just means that you can get exactly that shade that you want live. So that's a really useful feature rather than going in and out. So like I said, I was aiming for a sandier color. So I'm just going to try and find that. Cool. I'm pretty happy with that. We've got an RGB value down here, which will change with each different shade. You'll see the numbers changing there. This basically just means it's a specific value for this specific shade. So if this was a color that I loved and I wanted to use it on every single one of my pages, I could just copy and paste this value across, or, you know, make a note on a post-it note of the RGB that I like. So I'm happy with this color, so I'm going to click select and go back out of this. And I'm pretty happy with that. That's looking how I wanted to look. And now I'm going to recreate it for the footer, like I said. So I could remake this completely and paste across that RGB value, but this could be time consuming, right? Like, you don't want to be constantly recreating your elements to make sure that they all match. But Convertri has a clone tool that means you don't have to. So select the element that you want to clone, which in this case is the panel. We know we've got it selected because of those little blue kind of snap lines we see around it. And then just click our clone button up here. So another copy of this will now pop up on the page, and you can kind of hold and drag to move it around, just like we did with the image in this original header. So I'm going to place this in the footer at the bottom, so it sits there. I'm pretty happy. That's sandwiched my page nicely. They're identical, they're exactly the same size, and I only had to make them once. So I'm feeling good about that. It's getting me closer to my demo page that I have as a kind of example for myself. But now I need to add the real brunt of the elements on my page. So lead pages can contain, you know, very few elements. Sometimes simplicity really works for your brand, but you will need a few, for instance, a submit button and an email box, right? So we're just going to start adding a few of these. So first I'm going to add another panel, so the same one as I used for the header. I'm just going to resize that because I want it to be a bit bigger to contain all my elements. So I'm happy with that size. You know, I could always change it later. And then I'm going to pop on a few text elements in here to make it look like the demo page, where I had the title of what I am promoting and giving away and some information. So the name of my guide is this. So I've also got a text element with a description of what I'm selling. So I'm just going to type that out now. You can, of course, copy and paste into Convertri. I'm just typing out here because I actually know this one off by heart. Day. There we go. So that is my text. I'm going to add another text element, just letting them know to enter their details below. being nice and clear in these things is normally the way forward. And the final text element I'm going to add at the bottom, again, a lot like a lot of this, it's not completely essential, but we think that it's really good practice. And this is to add a message to basically reassure them that you're not going to spam them. This looks really professional. It's quite reassuring, and it tends to be the main reason that people don't like to give their email address out on the internet, right? Is they don't want to be receiving hundreds of emails every day. So just that bit of reassurance can be quite good for collecting your leads. So I've got all my text elements on my page, but they all look exactly the same. Like this is my header, but it looks the same as my body text, and I want to make some tweaks to font styles and things like that. So you can do this one by one if you want by clicking in the text element and editing up here. Or you can set default text styles on our page that mean that it affects all of the elements on the page when they're added. And so you only have to decide once that you want all of your text to be a certain font. And each time you add a text element after that, it will have the font ready. So to set up these default text styles, go to your page icon in the top hand toolbar. And the second option is default text styles. So once we're in here, I'm just going to pick out a new font. This is my favorite one. I'm also going to up the line spacing a bit. There we go. Hiya, James. I can see you've got a question for me there. Can I look into that at the end? I'm going to finish the demo, and once I'm done with the demo, I will keep your question in the backlog, okay? So I have seen it, but I'm just going to keep going for now, and I'll get back to it. All right, so I've got some line spacing up to now, and this is for my main paragraph text, so you can see this up here. So any text that's added to my page is automatically going to be paragraph unless I tell Convertri otherwise. That's a pretty easy assumption to make. There's also default font scaling for mobile. So the reason that we have this is because I like to think of it in the most literal terms. Size 18 font on mobile looks the same as size 12 font on desktop. This is because your phone is a smaller screen, it's a smaller device, and so to automatically up the font scaling means that Convertri automatically makes the text bigger so people can actually read your text on their phones, right? So we set this at 150% automatically. This is pretty standard. This could work most of the time, but I want my font a little bit smaller. So I'm just going to change this to 125% for my paragraphs. So I'm now going to repeat this editing process and create some default text styles for my heading as well. So this is going to be Noto Sans, another font I like. I don't need size 36 font, that feels too big for me, so I'm going to go down to 24. And again, I'm going to edit the font scaling on mobile, so that's 140. As I was changing this, you will have seen here that this text was changing live, so it's a bit like the color picker. It'll automatically change, and so you'll get a good comparison point for seeing if this default text style works for you. So once you've done this, click Done. And this is all edited, and now if I click in, you can see it's Lato, the font I set up, rather than the automatic one. This is my heading though, but it has automatically set to paragraph, as I said that all text would. And so I just need to tell Convertri that this is heading text. So once I'm in the text box, I'm going to click the More drop down and set this to H1 or heading 1. You can see the long names when you hover over them. That is looking a lot better. That's looking a lot more like a heading. Just going to edge some of these down so they're not overlapping so much. Obviously changing the font does change how they are working. I can close this. Cool. So again, this every single time it looks more and more like what I'm going for. So like I said, some of the most important things to add to your lead page is the actual boxes to collect your information. So we have these ready made for you in Convertri. So if you go to form elements, you've got your pick here. For the sake of today, I'm just going to do a first name, an email address, and then a submit button. The minimum that you need on your page is that email box and that submit button, so you can get the email and they can send the form. First name is just preference. Some people set up really long forms with addresses and phone numbers, etc. I just want their first name and email address today. You may have noticed when I added these to the page that they aren't actually reflecting the default text styles I set up. So these default text styles don't affect form elements because they're not text elements, they're something different entirely. So I need to go in and edit these. To do this, I'm going to go and click on the boxes that I want, click element properties, and in input properties, you'll have kind of the same thing just on a sidebar with like, all the text editing is similar looking. So I'm going to change this to Lato, like my main text. Maybe up the size a little bit. And then I'm going to do this for my submit button as well in the button settings. So I selected the element, selected button settings. I'm going to make this bold. I'm going to up the font to a kind of a decent size to get their, really catch their eye. And I'm going to also change the label text on this. So the point of my lead page is if you sign up to the mailing list, you get given a free guide. That's pretty standard practice. That's a lot of things that won't that people experience and use Convertri for. So I'm just going to use this to say download here. So they know what they're doing when they click the button, right? They're going to get the guide if they sign up. So we've got all of our elements and I'm feeling pretty good about them. They're all there, however, they are not actually very well ordered. So I could painstakingly, move all of these elements around and try and get them to line up, but that feels time consuming. And if you have very large scale pages, you'd be spending all your time doing that, right? Well, Convertri has alignment tools that mean that you actually don't have to do this and we do the work for you, which is very nice indeed. So to get all of these a bit more aligned, I'm going to click the panel that they're in. And you can see when I do that I've got the pink snap lines around these elements that pop up. That's because panels act as containers. So when they're behind something, everything in front of them is grouped as one when you select them like this. And that means that I can use alignment tools on all of these elements at once. So now I've got this selected and I've got my pink snap lines. I'm going to go to the drop down here, which looks like kind of two arrows pushing up against each other. It's next to the full width one. And these are all of our alignment tools. So it tells me I'm in container mode, and so it gives me the options for alignment for these elements. So I'm first going to center align these so that they look a bit more cool. That's looking a lot neater already, and all those boxes line up, but I didn't have to fiddle around. I'm not claiming to be a designer here, so I'm pretty pleased that that's done already. And then I'm just going to equally space these elements out because that gap is looking a bit larger than the one down here. So I'm selecting this text element and I'm holding down shift and selecting the elements that I want to select as one. So I've got 4 of them there. Then I'm going back to the alignment tools up top and I'm going to distribute these vertically so they have equal gaps between them. So cool, these are all equally gapped and ready to go. And I'm feeling, yeah, this is looking a lot neater and a lot more professional. But what isn't looking professional, or at least isn't to my taste, is this background element here. Sorry, excuse me. Is this background panel that I have. Oh, just take a glass of water, guys. Sorry, I've got something in my throat. That's a lot better. Sorry, thanks for bearing with. So yeah, this background panel isn't quite what I am going for. So I'm going to make it look a bit more professional by going to the element properties. And I'm going to change the background. This is the same practice as when I changed the background color of the header. So I'm going to click into the color picker again. But actually, rather than changing the color, I want to make it more opaque. So I want to be able to see the background image through it a little bit better. So rather than toggling around with these colors to the left hand, I'm going to go to these ones in the right hand. Pulling this down will affect the opacity. So if I pulled it to the bottom, it's completely see-through. But you also can't read my text elements at all. So that's a bit too drastic for me. I'm going to kind of up it to about here. That feels good. I still feel like everyone can read my text, but it's just looking a bit more seamless in my page and not just like a square that I popped right on. So I'm going to click select. And I'm also going to edit the border of this element just to give it a nice rounded border so it looks a lot more professional, like something I purposefully put there and designed for this page. So where I selected background, I'm going to select borders. And there's lots of different options here. So this area here means you can input all of your border radiuses separately. So if I wanted just one of my corners to be really tucked in, I'd pick which one I wanted. But in this scenario, I want them all to be the same. So I'm going to push this toggle on. I'm going to just pick whatever I like. This will change live. There we go. So they're tucked in. If I select this element, you'll be able to see them better. There we go. So I'm really happy with this actually. This is looking exactly how I wanted it to. It looks exactly like the demo page, which is really, really ideal. There's one thing I actually need to add before I keep going with this and really get my lead page together. And that is the privacy policy that I talked about before that I wanted to pop in my footer. It's pretty common that lots of people have a link they want in their footer, whether it be a privacy policy or some kind of other separate link for your website. So I'm just going to add this because I think it's a good example. So I'm going to pull the text element onto the page and type in privacy policy so they know what they're getting to when they click. I'm going to highlight this text because I'm going to hyperlink it. So when someone clicks it, they are taken to my privacy policy website. So I've highlighted the text and I'm going to go up to the quick actions for the text. And you'll see there's a little kind of chain button. When you hover over it, it says hyperlink. I'm going to click this and then I'm going to type in the website of my privacy policy. So I'm just going to use Convertris today. But obviously you guys will need to create your own, or if you don't have them, that's fine. So there it is there. There's a couple toggles here, and I'm actually just going to toggle on this one. I'm going to ignore this about URL parameters for the time being. But I'm going to toggle this on here so that this link opens in a new tab. And the reason I'm doing this is so that my user does not get distracted from my page. So if I link them to the privacy policy and it didn't open in a new tab, they might get distracted by reading it. They kind of half forget why they're there. You'd be surprised how easily people are distracted from your page, and you kind of lose that lead. You didn't get them to fill in the information. But if they open it in a new tab, then they can view it another time at their own pace and everything without wandering off. So Tony's asked, what is the pass on URL parameters? So this is a lot more complex. It's to do with entering informations in URL and that kind of thing. So it's a lot more complex. Like, we're not going to study it today, but we do have some documentation on that on our help articles that would walk you through it much quicker and easier than I'd be able to at this exact moment, Tony. But it's nothing we need to worry about really, unless it comes to quite complex tracking. Cool, so I'm happy with that. It's going to open in a new tab, so I'm going to click save. And my text is underlined, so I know that that has worked. I'm just going to use the alignment tools again so that this is dead center in my page. So I'm going to center the text in my text box, and then I'm going to select the box and go to my alignment tools again and align to page center. So that's dead center on my page, and if clicked, take them there. So this page is good, right? This is what you expect from your page. It's able to take in the leads. But when someone clicks this button, they're going to be taken to my delivery page. This delivery page is where I will give them the guide that I promised them when they signed up. So we're going to build that in a second, and that's going to be nice and quick and easy for us. And then we can get our form set up and we're up and moving. Before I move on, now that I'm done with the design of this page in desktop, it's good to just check it out in mobile. It's a pretty big thing for people designing their web pages on mobile, because it's, more and more traffic is coming through on mobile phones. So while you're on your desktop view, you're able to see up here because it's in the blue. We can then click over to mobile by selecting this mobile button here. So our screen now looks a bit more like a mobile screen would look, and I'm pretty happy with this. I always recommend checking out just to see how it's looking, but Convertri's done a pretty good job of putting these elements where I needed them to be. If I wanted to move them around, I could, and it wouldn't affect my desktop at all. So if I thought that the text was, I don't know why I would decide this, but I might decide that the text was better here, catching someone's attention, or that I wanted to move the panel down or move the header down. So I've done this, but if you go back to my desktop, it's not affected anything there. So you can have a play around without fear of ruining your whole site, don't worry. And if you think afterwards that Convertri maybe did a better job, or you want to go back to the base to edit your mobile page from, you can just select our Remobilize button. and it will pop everything back where Convertri thinks it should be. The mobilizer does a pretty good job most of the time, but it's, like I said, always good to check it out and just make sure it's how you expect it's going to be. So I'm happy with this. Both my desktop and my mobile are looking really, really good. So I'm going to click save and make sure that it's all saved on my page. If I didn't and then I went back to my funnel, it would all be deleted, and that would be really, really depressing. So make sure that you save that. And then I'm going to click my X to go back to the funnel. So just as I said before, I'm going to create another page, which means that I can deliver the documentation that I offered my users. This is super, it's going to be super annoying to recreate because I had default textiles on that page. I had my background image. I had everything going, and now I'm going to have to recreate it on another page, which feels time consuming, but there's actually a really quick workaround, so I don't have to do all that. So in the same way that I cloned my header and my footer, I can clone my page. So I'm going to clone the original page and then make some tweaks to it. So I'm going to select the three-dot menu on this page, more, and there'll be a couple of options that pop up. We want clone. I'm going to name my clone thank you page. And this will pop up in there. We can see it looks like our original page. So I'm going to go in and make the changes that I want to this page. My header and footer still stand, like I don't have to relink to my privacy policy and everything. But there is a couple of things I want to remove from here because I no longer need, once I've got their lead, I don't need a box for their email address. I don't need a box for their name. So I'm going to delete these elements. You can do this by using your backspace or your del on your keyboard, or by using our little delete icon, which is up here, which looks like a little trash can. So I'm going to delete these two. They know we're not going to spam them. I'm going to get rid of enter your details. And instead, I'm just going to change this text because I've sold them, right? They've signed up. So rather than giving them the spiel again, I am just going to pop something in here that says click below to get your free guide. I can't spell today, guys. Right, we're there. Click below to get your free guide on 7 top tips for slimming without starving. So they're going to click this button and it's going to download the document. I'll attach it in a second. So I'm just going to pull this up here because I don't need all this free space in my box anymore. And I'm going to pull the panel up to match it. And then I'm just going to put this here. That's kind of where I expect it to be when I landed on the page. So I'm just going to also use the alignment tool on this panel again and just space these back out because I pulled that button up and now it's all looking a bit messy again. So I'm going to center align and I'm going to justify these. Cool. Pretty happy with that. It's all neat and tidy, minimal effort, which is what we like. So now I'm going to make sure that this button does allow the user to download that document that I wanted. So I'm going to select the button. It's got the little blue outline on it. Go to element properties, and then I'm going to go to button settings. I'm going to change the text from download here, and I'm going to do click to download. So it's really, really clear what they have to do. It never hurts to be obvious on pages like this. Right, click to download. The mode is still sign up, which is what we have it set to when we want a form to submit. Sign up, you sign up for my mailing list. But in this situation, we want them to be downloading a document. So I'm going to select the mode and change that to download there. So it's just all in the drop down. And some different options will pop up for me, which will allow me to upload a file, which means that I can upload a file to this button. So I'm going to click this kind of element that looks like a little folder, do select file. So I've already got my file uploaded, but kind of like images, you can drag these straight off your desktop into this box here, or you can click upload and search through your computer's files for what you're looking for. These are all my domains, so these get uploaded to your domains, but if even though this funnel isn't registered to any of these domains, I can still just pop in and see the files I've uploaded. So they're kind of account wide, which is super useful if you're giving away something again and again. You can just upload it once and then pop it on. You'll see we've got a little warning message here that says individual files are limited to 40 megabytes. So 40 megabytes is a pretty big file size, guys, don't get me wrong. But there will be a few instances where people do want to deliver a massive file that is bigger than 40 megabytes. This isn't the end of the road, don't worry, just because you can't host it with us. It just means that you would need to host it elsewhere. So we recommend Amazon S3 because they're really quite cheap for hosting. And then rather than clicking this folder button, you would paste in the shareable link that Amazon S3 give you into here. But like I said, 40 megabytes is pretty big. It was no issue for me with this this file that I'm giving away. So that's just in case you hit that barrier, but I don't know too many people that have done. So I'm going to select my guide and click select. So a little URL is in there and it is all ready. The final thing I have to edit on this download button is whether I want to force the download on click. So if I do this, the user will be taken away. It will download automatically and the user will stay on this page. If I don't, they'll be taken to it on the page. So this is kind of like the open tab thing. I'm not going to turn this on because it doesn't matter to me now if my user leaves the page, they've given me their email address. But if this was on the first page of your funnel and you wanted to keep leading them through, you would want to force download on click so that they stay on your page. So this is just about what stage you're at in your funnel and stuff, but always the aim is keeping them on the page, right? So this thank you page is looking pretty good. I got to keep all my house styles and edit it really quickly. And I'm ready to put it live on the internet so I can link it up to my first page. So when you're ready to go live with a page, you just go to our publish button in the right hand side and you pick a URL for it. So I'm going to say webinar thank you because that's what it is. And then I'm going to click publish. So that only took a second and now my page is ready and I can click view page if I want to. Yeah, this is looking good. So I'm happy with this. And if you want your URL, it's up there. So you can share it and add it to things. So like I said, I'm ready to link this up to my main page now. So it's published, so I'm going to go back to the funnel. You've got the page and you've got the first page, but it's time to let Convertri know and have that conversation that this page leads to this page. So you can do this by copying and pasting that URL that we just had. But there's another way, an even easier way of telling Convertri, hey, this page moves to this page. And that's using our arrows. So this arrow here, you can just use and say, this is how my funnel moves along. So I'm going to hold this down and I'm going to point it at my thank you page. You could have loads of arrows pointing out of here, like you could have lots of different pages they could potentially go to, but this gives Convertri a rough idea, and you'll see in a minute, it means it can guess the URL basically and say, hey, did you want to use this page? I find it also a really good way of visually mapping for me. If I have a lot of funnels going on and I don't remember exactly where I'm going to get led, just having these arrows reminds me the start of the funnel, kind of how the funnel moves, etc. So I'm going to go back to this first page and click edit page. Still looking good, but not published yet. We're nearly there. So I'm going to link this up to a form now. So I'm going to go to forms in the top hand toolbar. And this kind of box will pop up here. Select autoresponders, and then you have to select the autoresponder that you like to use. So you can see we've got a whole host here of things that we integrate with. So these are kind of the most popular ones. I know I use MailChimp, for instance. So find the one that you use. If you haven't already integrated, a little message will come up here and it will just let you know how to link up your two accounts. So with the MailChimp, it's literally, if you were logged in a separate tab, it'd do it automatically. So that's pretty quick and easy. I'm here and I've selected MailChimp and it'll ask me what list I want to add my prospects to. So you create lists inside your autoresponders. They're sometimes called forms, they're sometimes called categories. They all mean the same thing. It's basically, you have sections where you can put your different people in. So I like to give the example of if I was selling pet food and I had cat food and dog food, I'd want to keep those two groups separate so I could only send the cat people emails about cat things and the dog emails about dog things. So you can have different lists for different things. I think I just have the one list. Yeah. So select the list and you'll have this screen pop up here. So we've got a fixed field, which is email, and this basically means that your email box must be set to email, which is fine. And then you've got some fields here, which there's a bit more to play with. So basically you just need to make sure that these match up. So these have been auto-filled for me, but sometimes they'll look more like this. And all you have to do is say, okay, it's looking for an address field. So find address down here. They won't always be identical. Like you can see phone number here says phone. So you guys know that that is the same thing, but the computer doesn't know. So just give it a little nudge. And if you don't assign these for the fields you plan to use, so in my case, that is first name and email. If you don't make sure they're matched up, then your autoresponder can't understand the information you're giving it. So they're clever, but they're not quite that clever. So we need to give them that little nudge. So they've got all the information they need there. So I'm going to select next. And this is where my thank you page comes in. If I hadn't drawn that arrow, this box would be blank and it would be saying, can you paste in the URL? But I did draw the arrow, and so Convertri's gone, hey, I think you want to use this page, which I do. If I'd drawn lots of arrows, then they'd all be available here on the suggestions drop down. So that just saves real human error. We're all human beings and we all make mistakes. If I had done this differently, with one letter different and I didn't know, then I might be having problems with my redirects and not understanding why that was happening. So it's easier when we get rid of our own human error, because I know I do it all the time. So we're happy with that thank you page. You don't have to use it. You can stay on page by just toggling this on. But this can be a little confusing for users. I mean, in this area, I wouldn't be able to give them the document that they want, right? But in general, it doesn't look like your form is submitted because they're still in the same place. Like when you submit something, you expect a thank you message or something to that theme. So we kind of recommend you use one just to let your users know that they're all signed up and they're going to start getting emails from you. So that's looking good. So I'm going to select done. And I've got a little red tick next to my forms, which is Convertri saying, yep, you've got a form set up on this page. I'm so close to publishing, but first I'm just going to check those form fields. The same as when I view them up there and I said address is address. I'm just going to check that these are allocated correctly. So to do that, I'm going to click in my form element box, go to form field settings, and just make sure that this is labeled. So first name, yeah, and email. Cool. They're exactly what I was expecting from that. So my page is up, it's set, and it's running. So I'm ready to publish it, and I'll show you guys exactly what it looks like live. So I'm going to select publish, and I'm just going to call this webinar leads. Doesn't matter what I call it for this example, but there we go. Right, publish. And just like the thank you page, this high quality image is going to load really, really quickly. So click view page. And there it is. My page is up and running. I think it looks a lot like my demo page that I used, I like to think. So I think I've done a pretty good job of recreating that. And if I was to take it for a test drive, let's say, so I'm Honor, and I'll just pop in support's email address because that's always a useful one to know. And I select this, it sends off my form, and I'm at my thank you page and I can download. So that's exactly what my leads would see. And I've already started to collect the email addresses of people. So cool, that is the first part of our webinar over. I'm going to move on to some tips and tricks in a minute. So Daryl has asked me, how do I link to your own Pixabay account? So we have an API integration with them, which means you can get all the images on Pixabay, so you shouldn't need to do that. But if you did want to add Pixabay images that weren't there, or an image that isn't there for whatever reason, you can just download the image from Pixabay and then upload it manually. Hi, James has said he's having some issues with his mobile editing. James, could you pop those emails over to support, because then I can have a look at your page directly and I don't have to guess what's wrong, I can tell you. So I'm just going to put support's email address in the chat. support@convertri.com. Direct any emails or like questions you guys have there, and if you let us know your page details, we can take a look and see what's causing issues. We're also super friendly, so there's no question too big or small. So don't feel nervous about asking us a question. We will always help out. There's no such thing as a stupid question, I think. Cool. So if we just check if we don't have any more questions about what I've just done, and if we don't, then I'll move on to the next section. So Tony has asked, once they redirected to the download page, cool, how would you connect them to a sales page? Would you do this in the funnel or by email? So that's up to you. Obviously, the way that you have your autoresponder set up might be that you automatically send them an email when they sign up. And in that case, you could link and say, hey, this is my main sales page. Or you could pop a button on that says sales page onto that download page. So it's kind of up to you. You can hyperlink text to your sales page. You can hyperlink like physical elements. So like click here to get to my sales page, or an email. So they're all possible. And that is kind of discretionary and up to you. So Clint is talking about whether he can integrate this with a personal website. So you can certainly mix and match this with any other website that you have. There's no issue with that. That's completely up to you. You can just create your pages here, link them to other pages. And as long as you're happy with the website URLs and everything, then it's kind of fine. We're not going to force you. It doesn't have to be a Convertri website. Cool. Well, I'm going to move on to our editor tips and tricks, guys, which help you make the most of Convertri. This is my favorite part of the webinar because I think it's where everything really fits together, and you really understand how to make the most out of this program. So this is a template that we have inside Convertri, and it's pretty useful. It's pretty common that you guys will want to take our templates out for a test drive at some point. But while you are doing this, you might say that you don't really like this template and you want to make some changes. And I'm going to show you how to do that as quickly and effectively as possible and get up and running. So the first thing I'm going to do on this page is I'm going to scroll through and decide that I don't offer a menu on my website, right? So I don't want this anymore. I could delete all of these elements one by one by selecting them, but it feels a bit time consuming and also like leaves margin for like that human error again, where you accidentally leave an element on and then you see it on your page and you're not so pleased with it. So there's actually a way that we can delete all of these elements at once, and that is using the backing panel. So there is a panel like the one that we created for our leads behind all of these elements. So I can delete these at the same way as I can move them all together, like I did with the lead page. I can also delete them all. So if I hit backspace, that is disappeared, and I didn't have to worry too much about deleting everything individually. So I'm happy with this, but I am a little annoyed now by this big gap on my page. That's going to really turn my users off. They're not going to scroll past that gap to find out about me. So now I have to move all the elements up, right? And that seems time consuming. They're already exactly where I want them to be. But we can use Convertri's remove white space tool, which will just mean that this backing panel here will move so that it's in line with the next element on our page. So we're going to select the backing panel of the bottom where we want to remove the white space above. We're going to go to this button up here. It's next to the kind of bin one. It looks like it's got a little dotty dash box and then like a filled in box. Press this, and this is going to tuck back up to my next backing panel. So you never would have even known that that menu was there. And not only did it just move this panel, but it moved everything underneath this panel. So I did not have to worry about moving all these elements around. So that's a real time saver for editing templates. But also if you add something to your page and then decide you're not so keen, this isn't a stress. You can remove that easy squeezy. If it came that later along the line, I wanted to move this page again, I move this panel down again and create some space. Maybe I want a little banner. Maybe I'm doing a special offer. Just click this panel and hold down Shift. And you can move everything in line again. So that's moving all the elements below it as well. So that's just holding down Shift and then clicking on the element and dragging it around the page. So I'm happy with this gap I've got going on here. That bit is totally suited to me. But I'm actually going to show you another keyboard shortcut that is something that once I learned it, and I didn't know it for far too long considering that I work at Convertri, once I learned it, sped up my whole process. And that is cloning without pressing our cloning box. So the cloning button is pretty quick, I'm not going to lie, but there's an even quicker way of doing it, and that is with the keyboard shortcut Alt Drag. So while this is element I want to duplicate, I'm going to click on it, hold down Alt, and then I'm going to drag it. And suddenly there's two of it. So I clicked on the element, I held down Alt, and I dragged. Clicked on the element, held down Alt, and I dragged. So now I've got three of that element. I didn't even have to click any buttons. Feeling quite pleased with that. So that's a good way of like if you add an element to your page and it's perfect, and you want it in a couple places, you can do that no problem. But these are looking a bit messy. So I'm going to make use of panels and alignment again, and make sure that I can So Tony's asked, is this the same if you're using a Mac? Yes, it is actually. So I use a MacBook for work. So I literally did that on a Mac. And I know that Macs sometimes can be a little bit fuzzy on what they decide a keyboard shortcut is and if they want to play fair, but the Mac keyboard plays fair with this. So I'm going to add that backing panel and I'm going to make these neater. And again, like I said before, if I wanted to, I could move them myself, but time consuming. I like to save as much time as possible and also have it perfect. So I'm going to pull one of these panels onto the page. And I want to cover all these elements so that I know they're in there, but I can't see them. So I'm going to turn on the element outlines. To do this, I'm going to go to display in the top hand toolbar, and I'm just going to toggle this element outline on. So now I can see my boxes behind, even though they're behind. So this is a great way of also finding elements that you've lost on your page. Happens to me more than I care to admit. And I can just find them, get rid of them if they're causing me issues, etc. So I'm now going to send this back. So the panel, in order to work, the elements need to be sitting on top of it. So I'm going to send it backwards until all 6 of them are sat nice on top. There we go. And I'm just going to make this see-through so that you actually can't see the panel, but you know that it is there. So element properties, and it's just that opacity again, but this time rather than making it a bit opaque, we're making it see-through. Select. So no one would know that was there. Your users wouldn't know that was on the page, but it is making your life a hell of a lot easier. So these are all contained in my panel now, and I'm going to go to alignment. And I think I'm going to middle align these. And then I think I want to distribute them because some of them are overlapping and some of them aren't. So I justified them. And now they're all spaced out. And my user is none the wiser that I did a quick little trick and everything is exactly where I want. So this panel trick is one of my favorites because it can also be used on our mobile editor. So to give you an idea of what I mean, I'm going to go to the mobile editor for this page. I'm going to click remobilize because I want to know what Convertri thinks my page should look like. And off the bat, I can immediately see that this isn't going how I planned because on my main page, this is just above that text, that bread text, but now it's not clear that which text corresponds to which heading, which is pretty confusing for my user. So I'm going to add panels in the desktop to make this work and play fair with me. So when Convertri is building your mobile page, I like to imagine that it is reading a book. That's how I helped to understand it in my own brain when I first started. So it reads your page like this, across like a line, and it puts these 2 elements together. Then it reads this picture and goes, cool, pop that one on the page. And then it reads these 3 in a line, and it puts those 3 together and then those 3 together, which to it seems fine, right? It's a computer, but to us, we know that that is not the case. So if I could put a panel behind each of these 3 sets, when it gets to read this like a book, it will hit the panel first and say, oh, that's a whole collection of elements, and it will group them. So I'm going to put a panel on the page. I'm going to make it big enough to contain my element, but not too big. Cool. I'm going to clone this 3 times because I've got 3 sets, right? So covering it there, covering it there. I'm then going to send this backwards like I did with my image ones. So selecting the element and sending backwards so that these are sat on top. And I'm not going to make all of these opaque because you can see them for design purposes, but I could make all of these opaque. No one would be any the wiser that they were there. So we don't need to actually click anything because the moment I go back to the Convertri builder, it's automatically put those together and this has all happened without me actually having to click anything. So this is how panels can really help to make sure that your mobilization is accurate first time, which is ideal, right? Because you spent hours on your desktop. You want it to all play fair in mobile. So the key to everything, in my opinion, is panels, because they can be see-through, but they're a really good way of ordering. So I'm just going to have a look through and see how else the rest of this is looking. Not too mad. They're stacking. This is an issue for me. So these 4 icons in my desktop, they are horizontal, but here they've stacked vertically because again, Convertri's reader is very annoyingly reading it like a book. So I'm going to pop in here and see if I can make these read properly. So Tony's also talking about grouping elements together, and you certainly can do that, Tony. Yeah, it's kind of all personal preference, but with the mobilization, it plays a lot fairer with the panels than it does with the grouping the elements. But it's also something I use pretty regularly there. So you're right on that one. So these are stacking, right, in my mobile view, but they are horizontal here. And I want them to be like that in my mobile view. So I'm gonna trusty old panel. I think you saw that one coming. Pop that on the page. And I'm just gonna it only needs to group these elements together, right? And then I'm gonna make sure that they all come to the front. I need to send this one backward, don't I, so they can sit on the front. There we go. So again, I can make this see-through. This is just so that you guys can physically see what this panel is doing. And now if I went to mobile, they are exactly how I wanted them to be. So that took me like 3 seconds. I didn't really have to click much. But there is something to note with this using mobilization panel, and that is that the current width of this panel, let's take a look. I'll go to element properties. And if I go to positioning, it will give me the width is 256, right? Anything past 300 is not going to mobilize. So if I made this 350, for example, it's much bigger than I need it to be, but for the purpose of showing you guys, these stack again. So the mobilization panel trick is only going to work for a panel that is smaller than 300, but that easily fits my elements here. So that's kind of just a warning in case you guys think it's not playing ball and Anna told me it would. It will play ball up to 300. So I'm actually pretty happy with this page. I've made the changes I want to. So I'm going to save it. And that is the end of our editor tips and tricks for you guys today. Tony says he does like the panels trick. Yeah, I didn't use panels for too long and it has changed the game for me. So I'm going to show you guys some new features and then I'm just going to give you a chance to ask me anything and everything Convertri, because I know when you start something new or you're even going with something, you just want to check in with loads of things, and why not check in with support who you're going to be contacting. I've got a question from Tony about UpViral. I'm not too familiar with UpViral, but you're talking about their widget. So if they had HTML, they had an HTML code like for an element, you could pop that onto your page. But I'm not too familiar with them, so I can't advise you directly. If you're still a bit concerned, feel free to pop us an email at Convertri, because if I don't know, another member of my support team will. Communally, we've got that kind of stuff covered. Cool. So before I move on to the final questions of today, I'm just going to show you guys the new features we have updated. So like I said, this happens weekly. And we have a feature voting board for our members. So this is all stuff that people have asked for, and it's been a consensus as well that this is a pretty popular thing. So we release every Tuesday, and we try to add something new, a little snippet, and slowly just elevate Convertri more and more. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about with you guys is going to be a new addition to our analytics. So we've recently revamped our analytics board, which you can find by going to campaigns, being in your funnel, like I've been for a lot of this time, and then clicking analytics on the left-hand menu. This just gives you a good idea, right, of what's going on in your funnel. And recently we've added 2 new report buttons. So when we've got a breakdown by location, which is showing us on a little map where our users are, we can click view report and we can see the list of countries. So you might have people viewing your page from countries that you never knew were popular with, and you can adjust things like languages or your shipping accordingly. And the other thing is sources. So if someone found my website, where were they when they clicked the link to get to it? So you can click view report on that, and you can see a breakdown of how many people viewed based on that. I'm not getting too many views on this funnel, but just as an example of how they made up my views. So that was added this Tuesday. Another addition we made was just some additions to our coupon feature, which is also pretty new with Convertri and is going down a storm. So we've added this bar here for status. So this means you can see whether your coupon is active or not. So you can have coupons that expire at a certain time, like increase some urgency with your user. This offer will expire 12 o'clock at midnight. So if 12 o'clock at midnight, pretty obvious. So if this does happen, then and the coupon expires, you've got a little red inactive, and if it's still going, you've got a green active. This just stops you from giving out inactive coupons because you don't want to upset people. And you've also got the number of times this coupon has been used. So you might see that one of your coupons is just doing so well, and you can try and promote that further, or think, if where that coupon has come from must be a really useful source for your funnel. We've also introduced with coupons so that you can offer someone like a coupon off their first month, and then the reoccurring billings would be your normal price. So if you don't have to offer them 50% off for their whole lifespan, you could say every single month you pay me £50, but this month you pay me £25. So that is another feature that we've updated that is pretty good for people who want to, entice. The final feature that we have added is how we show you guys what's going on with your pages. So I've got 3 pages here and they've all got different icons. This one has none, so that means that page is not live on the internet. This page has a green tick, and if I hover over it, it gives me my URL, and this means it's live and it's up to date. And then we've got this exclamation mark here, which means it's been published, and since then I've made changes, but I've not published. So it's still showing the old version. You need to republish when you make those changes. So it's letting you know, hey, you might want to update this. So this is just a glance. You don't have to go into your pages. And it was really heavily requested, so we were pleased to add that one. Cool, so I've got a question from Tony again. So this might be a dumb question, but does Convertri have a shopping cart? No dumb questions, Tony, don't worry about it. So we do. So up here on this cart here, we do have all things shopping and all things money. So you can create products to sell in Convertri and then link them up. I'll show you guys where to find some help documentation on that, because everyone's trying to achieve different things, and it will get you won't have to listen to me tell you all the options. You'll just be able to see the option that you want to create. So you can create products and link them up to your pages. You can view past orders that someone has made, see how much money you've made. You can see, is one person buying all your products? How are your prospects doing? Control coupons, control things like tax, which is a pretty big deal for some people. And also see the analytics of how your shopping is doing. So we do have a cart feature that allows you to buy things, and there's lots of different options with that. So to get the most out of this and see exactly what's going on, you can go to help.convertri.com, and I think we have, there we go, products and payments. So you can search in here or here and say, what exactly you want to achieve, and you'll find a help documentation for that. So cool, does anyone have any other questions? Someone has asked me, will this be available later on? Because they want to recreate this. We aim to have these up by Tuesday, I believe. These will be in help.convertri.com, but we'll post it in the Facebook group as well. You'll be able to find it. So it'll be everywhere and anywhere, and you'll be able to follow along with me again. All of our previous ones are here, and they all follow a pretty similar trend. So if you wanted to kind of follow along with the basics of this again, go to help.convertri.com and then click on the Getting Started webinars. So Tony has said, how do you make a menu using wireframe so that if you change something in the menu, it will apply the change in all the pages which have the menu? So that is where our shared headers and footers come in. You can find more about this again on our webinar, but it means that in a whole funnel, you can have one header and you could put it on every single page. So you would add the menu into your header and footer, and then change it however you want. And as long as you republish your pages, you won't have to go in and keep changing links or updating things. All of the headers and footers will change communally. So that's that's what people commonly use the header and footer for, is having a menu that says home, about me, contact us, and you can have those across all your pages and make changes and just republish. So that's how you get that done. So we've been asked, where do you find the recording? So it will be in this Getting Started webinar section here. So help.convertri.com and then Getting Started webinars. It hasn't been uploaded yet. It's still recording as we speak, but we'll get it up by Tuesday. We aim to get it up earlier. That's just giving our team some leeway. But there's previous ones here as well, which follow the same grain. So Clint has asked me, how does this integrate with WordPress websites? I'm sure that's been on a couple of people's minds, Clint, because it is a pretty common question I get asked a lot on support. So different people want to do different things with WordPress, and that is fine. So if I type in WordPress here, actually, you'll be able to see the help doc I'm going to tell you to go to. So you can see how to create a blog via WordPress, and this is going to walk you through like the different options of do you want to host with us, do you want to host with WordPress? But we do integrate with WordPress with a plugin. So following this step by step will kind of get you where you need to be, Clint. But if you are experiencing any problems and you think this isn't working, please email that support email I posted in the chat earlier. We're friendly, we don't bite, and we can go into your page and see exactly what's going on with that. So Tony's asked me for an example of layers. Tony's showing off all the best things about Convertri today. So layers are something that we have. I like to think of it like, again, like a book, but rather than reading a book, it will sit, layers sit on top of your page like sheets of paper. So I can probably show you layers in here actually. So there's a layers overview. If we go to that one, that's the one we want. So this help document here will tell you all about how to add layers, how to make them, show or don't show at certain times. So if you don't know what a layer is, it can be used as an example, like if you want to pop up saying sign up to my email list and you get 10% off. That could be the kind of thing to use in a layer. People use headers and footers in layers. You can hide things in layers, and then when a button is clicked, a layer appears saying do this. So people use layers for so many things. It's crazy. Sometimes when I go on people's pages, I can't believe how well they've used their layers. But this is how to create them. This help document here, I'll drop the URL in the chat for you, Tony. And yeah, mostly used, I would say, for headers and footers and like calls to action, pop-ups, things like that. Yeah, so Clint's asked, can we use the Convertri plugin from WordPress and use it that way? Yeah, we can. So like I typed in WordPress here, there's also a WordPress plugin article here. So this will walk you through the plugin, and then the main article will walk you through exactly like how WordPress and Convertri communicate. It can be really complicated on WordPress, or it can feel really complicated. So we've got a very long article kind of walking you through so you don't feel stressed, because I know WordPress isn't something I'd played too much before where I worked with Convertri, and it does take some getting used to. So I'd recommend checking all of these out and shooting us an email if you're struggling. We love to help. You're very welcome, Patricia. I'm really glad that you enjoyed the webinar today. And like I said, guys, again, please feel free to email me if you, in 20 minutes time, you think, I wish I'd asked Honor that. I'll still be here. I'll still be at work. So just shoot us an email and I will get that back to you. You're also very welcome. Thank you. Yeah, so Tony had WordPress and he decided to do everything in Convertri. It's so personal, like every single person decides how they want their WordPress and Convertri to work. Maybe while you're getting started with Convertri and you start to feel more confident with it, you'd be more likely to keep some stuff in WordPress and then later on think, hey, I know what I'm doing now. It kind of depends. Like people do prefer, we don't claim to be perfect for blogs. So we do say keep your blogs on WordPress, but other stuff is pretty achievable with Convertri. Thank you. I'm glad you learned a lot, Cohen. I learn something new every single time I present this and I'm presenting it. So I'm glad you learned everything. All right, guys, we're looking pretty good. I'm not looking like I've got any more questions, so I'm going to finish up today. But it was a pleasure presenting with you guys, and hopefully I'll see your friendly faces in the Facebook group, or in support. I love it. I love a chat. So see you guys around. Thank you.